there, and welcome back to the Codex, everybody. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the new Nightwave augment Necrophagic Vigor for the Hema, which is, a little spoiler for you, a very incredibly strong mod for the Hema. It is a strict upgrade over the standard non-augment version of the build in almost any build case. But before we talk about that, first I want to say Merry Tennobaum to everybody. It is now the month of December, which means it is Tennobaum in a Warframe. And I just wanted to talk for a quick moment about my upcoming plans for the channel and the month of December overall. So, we've been a bit light on the videos lately. I've been trying to, really stick to my streaming schedule, and unfortunately I haven't gotten out as many videos as I want to. And I'm going to start working on that. I want to make that a bit more consistent. And part of that is going to be that for the month of December, I am going to do a video every single day of December. Now, this one is getting it, it's cutting it real close to the line, because for my time zone, it's going to be uploaded basically right before midnight. So technically out on December 1st. Sorry, it's a little bit late. Meant to get it out before I went to work today, but things happen. But yes, there's going to be a video every single day of December. And of course, once we hit December 10th and onward, there's going to be a lot of old piece specific content. And before that, I am going to talk about Soulframe and my plans for Soulframe and the future of the channel in regards to doing both Warframe and Soulframe content. That's going to be a video coming up before the 10th, so you can look forward to that. So with all that in mind, thank you for bearing with me. Just wanted to get that announcement out. Let's go ahead and move on to the topic of today's video, the Necrophagic Vigor augment for the Hema. Now, just like the Bazbu augment that we got, which was objectively very good mathematically, this augment also is not the most exciting in the sense that it doesn't dramatically or at all change the way that the weapon works. But it is objectively a very strong weapon in terms of strong mod rather, in terms of the pure numbers that it gives us. It reads, reloading drains up to half your health based on ammo created, increasing critical chance and critical damage by plus 20% for every 20 health drained, capped at 360%. So if you cap this mod out, which requires draining 360 health, because since it's 20 crit chance for 20 health, it's basically a 1-to-1 relationship, so the 360% equates to needing to drain 360 health. You get 360% crit chance and 360% crit damage. Now, since this is conditional, if you put this on your build, let me go to the non-Riven build, of course, because I have a Riven, but I know a lot of you don't, and we want to show builds you can actually replicate here. So on this version of the build, which is a Blast Magnetic Viral, because it has innate viral, so Blast Magnetic and Viral with primary Crux, Blast Focused build, which adds a very nice element of AoE to the Hema. The obvious mod to replace here, in my opinion, would be Vital Sense. Now, it'll make the numbers look worse in the arsenal because Necrophagic Vigor is purely conditional buffs, and Vital Sense is a always applied 120% crit damage. So it looks like the crit damage is going down from 5.1 to 2.3. But if you actually fully stack up this mod here, then your actual critical multiplier is going to be 10.58. And that's without Tenacious Bond. Right now, I don't have a companion on giving me Tenacious or Reinforced Bond, so I just have my base fire rate and the base multiplier. But even without Tenacious Bond, this is a 10.58 critical multiplier. And if you are using the build that I'm using, which is Galvanized Scope plus this augment now, previously this build only had, I believe it was 84% critical chance after Galvanized Scope was fully stacked up. But if you max out this mod, which gives you that crit damage and also 360% critical chance, you go from having 84% critical damage to now instead having a whopping 156%. So we go from not even hitting normal crits all of the time to orange critting over half the time. So not only guaranteeing crits, but even stronger crits, orange crits, over half the time, which means that instead of that 10.58x multiplier, you're actually going to have a multiplier of about 20.1. Like, let's just round down basically to be conservative. You're going to have a 20x crit multiplier over half the time on, again, this version of the build. And the status application is also very amazing with primary Crux on here. Now, the way that this mod specifically works, let's go ahead and hop over to the simulacrum and showcase more of that. All right, so the way that this mod works, you have to drain at least 360 health at a minimum to cap out the 360% crit chance and critical damage, but the mod is only allowed to drain up to half of your max health, which means that at minimum, your max health needs to be twice 360, so you need a minimum of 720 health to cap out this mod. One of the closest frame examples I can show here to that is this Excalibur build. Excalibur Umber with just Vitality has 740 health. I'm actually just now realizing, though, that perhaps a rank 9 Vitality would get us closer to... No, that's 706, so that's too low. This will actually be a good example, though. Let's show it with 706, because you need 720. And this mod stacks... It doesn't stack like Bellicose, where it actually scales with the intermediate health values. It's exactly... It's all or nothing. Like, if you have 19 health towards the next 20% threshold, you don't get it. But once you hit that 20, you get the full 20%. It's not... There's no, like, 23, 27... There's no in-between... Or like 13, 17% is what I meant to say. There's no like in-between values. It's all or nothing. So with 706 health, and let me put on a higher fire rate version of the mod here to empty out the magazine quickly. With 706 health, this is only going to give me 340% instead of 360, as we're about to see here. There you go, 340%, just as predicted. Necrophagic buff there. But once we switch back to a max rank Vitality, allowing us to hit that 720 health threshold, we will max out to that full 360. And this does reset every magazine, just so you know. So this buff, it is only persistent through the magazine. And then once you reload, depending on the amount of health that you drain at that moment, it will determine the crit chance and the crit damage for that next singular magazine. So there we go, 360%. Now that does bring into play another synergy, actually, of the arcane that I was already using on my Hema build, which is Primary Crux. Since the crit chance and the crit damage is snapshotted onto just the next one magazine, once you do that first reload and you trigger enough of a health drain to cap out the necrophagic buff, Primary Crux, since it gives you 60% ammo efficiency along with that stash chance, not only is the stash chance buff a really nice, boon for this blast build, because more blast procs, more AoE damage, but the ammo efficiency means that you can snapshot that fully buffed magazine for a longer amount of time before having to reload. And since it's purely based on the reload and there's no duration or anything to this buff, like it's not like, oh, you only have 10 seconds of this crit chance and crit damage buff. The longer that you make this magazine last, then the less you have to deal with the reload mechanic of having to make sure that you drain enough health, for example. So let me show you the full version of this build here. Let's go ahead and dump the magazine. I'll actually skip ahead for a moment here so you guys don't have to watch this all. All right, here we go. Reloading. We got the full 360. Now let's go ahead and summon some level 230 Corrupted Heavy Gunners here. Now we still need the first couple kills to stack up our Galvanized mods, of course. So that first kill is going to be the slowest. Then it starts speeding up as we get those Aptitude and Chamber stacks. And now you can see that we are doing a good amount of damage to these guys. Instead of hitting, like I said, we used to hit only partially yellow crits. Now we're hitting guaranteed yellow crits and actually mostly orange crits. And you can see those blast procs I was talking about are doing absolutely delicious damage to nearby enemies. We're doing anywhere from, looks like an average of 250 to 450k splash damage to those surrounding enemies. Let's go ahead and do that again now that we're fully juiced up, just so you can see that. Again, excellent AoE damage. I only actually shot one guy here, but this guy's almost dead, this guy's almost dead, this guy's almost dead. So even though this is technically a single target weapon, by modding it for this blast setup, and again, buffing it even further with these new augmented values, you are able to do a very good amount of crowd clearing damage, especially if you were to play as a frame that has any kind of grouping, for example, like Chorus and Snare, or, any kind of grouping tool where you can clump enemies up and then get more value from that 5-meter AoE that blast procs have. That is, again, why my favorite build for this is this blast build. Now let's go back to the original version of the build without the augment, just so you can see how much worse this kill rate is. So let's drop the augment and go back to Vital Sense. And resummon these guys. Again, these first few kills are going to be a little bit slower because I reset the Galvanized mods. So we're going to ignore these this first kill or two. And again, you can see this is much, much slower. And literally the only thing that we changed is going from the augment back to Vital Sense. It's going to speed up a little bit here, though. We got the Galvanized stacks going. Even faster. Now we're pretty much fully stacked up. And again, so back to not even guaranteed crits. You're seeing a lot of white hit damage there. And the splash damage from the blast procs is, as you can see, dramatically lower. Now, instead of seemingly 250 to 300k to 450k plus, we're now only hitting under 100k in a lot of cases to the nearby enemy. So this is much, much weaker than the augment is. Now, it is worth noting the augment is not only worth using if you're in a situation where the frame is able to max out the value to the full 360%. If you think about it, this augment is a directly strict upgrade to Vital Sense, even if you achieve only a third of its value, because it caps out at 360% after draining 360 health. But a third of that value would be 120%. Vital Sense gives 120% crit damage. So if you only get a third of this augment's value, it would give you the same 120% crit damage that Vital Sense gives you, but it would also give you 120% crit chance. So that would make it, even at, again, 1/3 of its full strength, a strict upgrade to Vital Sense. And even if you were slightly under that, if you were only getting 100% crit damage, but also paired with 100% crit chance, you would still have marginally higher DPS due to the combined buffs. So it's really very easy to get a strict value upgrade from this augment mod, even if you're not capping it out. And at that point, the health value requirement, that would go from only requiring you to drain 360 health down to 120 health, which again, it can only drain half your health, so your frame would have to have twice that. So you would only need a frame that has 240 health or more to bottom out the magazine to cap out that buff. So very easy on almost any frame. Now you can guarantee getting it on any frame, no matter how low their base health is, by running a frame with Arcane Blessing if you wanted to. This Arcane right here, it gives you extra max health on health orb pickup for the rest of the mission, and after it's fully stacked, it gives you 1200 health. So this would make any frame, no matter what their starting value is, have more than enough health to easily cap out the augment mod. Now it is also worth noting that the mod, when it will always drain the percentage of health that it drains. If you think about how the mod works, since it can only drain up to half of your health against bonus, basically the bonus that you're going to get from reloading is equivalent to half of the percentage of the magazine missing. So for example, if you bottom out the magazine, you empty out the weapon, that means that you're missing 100% of its ammo, and you get that full 50% health drain. So if you reloaded when the magazine was still 50% full, then it would take a quarter of your health. So that's just important to know how that math works. It also means that, again, the more max health that a frame has, the less towards bottoming out you would have to get before reloading. Like basically, you could, on frames that have way higher max health, you can reload earlier and still get the max health buff. So if you are like a Call of Duty type player, for example, and you like to reload after every kill, you can do that more easily and still maintain the full buff if you have a frame that has such a high health value that a small percentage of that health is still equivalent to the necessary 360 to max out the buff. Sorry, I know that was a lot of words, but I'm trying to explain, basically like different frames can get different utility out of this. Let's put on Araxia, for example, with this purpose-built setup here. If I go to this build, this is going to generate a huge amount of max health. If I go into Araxia's 4th ability on this, I have almost 12,000 health. If I just fire a couple bursts of this, and then I still have 92 ammo left. If I reload right now, because I have so much max health that a very small percentage of the magazine missing still equates to me being able to drain 360 health. I hit the 360 buff right there. You can see I have the full 360% necrophagic. So just keep in mind that the more max health that a frame has, the earlier you can reload and get more towards that max buff, or even capping it out again. Same thing with like Nidus with Parasitic Link. If you have the Parasitic Link augment and you get like 50,000 health, you can basically fire a single round and reload, and you would get the full maxed out buff. Another great example of a frame that I like with this weapon that also has plenty of health, making it easy to cap out, is Lavos with a Valence formation on. You can see this mod, of course, to any weapon just adds a ton of extra damage thanks to its extra elemental damage bonus and its guaranteed status. If I use this on the Hema, I could, for example, add even more blast on, which is a favorite of mine. Go ahead and cast that. And then we get, just more blast per blast. I call it blast squared. Again, these first couple kills here are going to be a little slower. Let's actually go ahead and reload here to get that necro buff to speed it up. There we go. Get a few kills to stack up our galvanized mods. Let's reload again. And there we go. We're still only at 280% for that necro buff because I reloaded a little bit too soon there, but you can see that, like I said, it does way, way more damage than the Vital Sense build. Now, one frame that you can get a lot of utility on this weapon out of is going to be Wisp, because of course on Wisp, with her vitality modes, which I'll actually go into a regular mission to showcase here in a moment. With basically any kind of build, but with Roar especially, a Wisp Roar setup will juice the ever-living hell out of a Blast built Hema, because not only can her vitality modes from her first ability, of course, ensure that you max out the reload bonus for the augment mod, but also if you pop Roar on here, Roar is calculated as a universal faction multiplier, and faction multipliers are double dipped by damage over time effects, such as Blast, for example. So you can see even before I have my Bellicose fully maxed out here, I'm at almost a 130% Roar. So that's equivalent to a 2.3x multiplier. And again, damage over times, dots double dip that. So that would be 2.3 times 2.3. So simply casting Roar in this scenario, again, and not even fully maxed out because my Bellicose is not capped, would be equivalent to a over 5.2x damage multiplier for the Blast procs. Let's go ahead and showcase that in action here. Again, we'll resummon these enemies. Put the vitality motes down. Let's go ahead and empty out a few shots here. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we get this fully juiced up, so that should be enough to cap it out. Let's reload. There you go, 360%. And then we'll get these first few kills here for the galvanized stacks. Now pay attention to how much damage that the blast procs do here. So you can see that was about 300k on that guy. Let's do another one. There we go, 170. That guy took 214. Now let's cast Roar and look at how heavily this is multiplied. 1.3 million blast proc AoE damage. Let's kill this guy. 512k. Let's go ahead and resummon these guys so you can see that again. Again, Roar is still up here. 1.6 million AoE damage. 1.3 million. So the guys that we're not even directly hitting are taking millions of damage. And I didn't even throw down her other mote for the fire rate buff. Let's throw down the haste mote. And then you also have the benefit of that insane fire rate, which pairs wonderfully again with the ammo efficiency from primary Crux. Because without Crux and this much fire rate, you would be, of course, running out of ammo a lot sooner. And also, on top of all this, again, we're not even using a companion, giving us both Tenacious Spawn and Reinforced Spawn. So now that I added this back on here, you can see Reinforced for the 60% fire rate and Tenacious for that 1.2x crit multiplier. Now if I go back to the Hema, its fire rate and its crit multiplier damage are now even better, which again are juiced by the Necrophagic Vigor augment. So this is just a whole lot of synergy here. In fact, let me take this into a regular mission, a conjunction survival, just so you can see against, actual real moving enemy environment how fantastic that this is. All right, so here comes some enemies. Let's go ahead and start mowing these guys down. I have my vitality and my haste mode down. And we also have our reinforced spawn, so you can see our fire rate is super juiced up compared to how it was early in the mission. So just in case you thought that the Hema build only wrecked in the simulacrum, it absolutely does not. Take this to a real mission, and assuming you have some hopefully decent aim until you can hit those headshots for Crux and that extra, headshot damage and whatnot, you will absolutely shred groups of enemies. Go ahead and reload here. Yep, hitting those tasty orange crits, and let's go ahead and cast Roar. And again, you will see that the AoE damage, if these guys would stop taking my gun away, the AoE damage of these blast procs is comically high. Yeah, you shoot into a crowd of enemies, and everybody around dies. I just killed, what, like 7 guys right there? Let's shoot this guy, insane damage. Let's shoot this one guy, everybody explodes. And again, the 2.4 million damage right there. The blast procs are so consistent because thanks to the galvanized mod plus Crux alone, we have almost 200% stats chance. So extremely consistent blast procs. Yeah, it's just a fun weapon. It's fun to make a single target, not hyper meta weapon be this effective. And yeah, I mean, that's about it. I don't want to drag out the video too long. I know it was already pretty long in the tooth there because of all the mathematical explanations and whatnot, but let me know in the comments down below. Do you guys like this augment? Again, I know it's not super exciting like maybe some other previous Night Waves where there's actual mechanical differences to the weapon, like the Sentient Surge augment or whatnot, fundamentally changing how the weapon works. But the numbers that it puts out are very good. So again, let me know what you guys think. Is there any other frames that would have a good synergy with this that might make it, even more juiced than what I've shown here? And again, this is with no ribbon, so especially if you want to get a ribbon or anything like that, you can make it even more fantastic. All right, look forward to tomorrow's video. Again, there's going to be a video every single day of December to celebrate Tennobaum and to move the channel forward. And it's going to be a good time. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video.